Welcome to Elementary Math Chat, a podcast for all elementary math teachers looking for ideas and support when it comes to teaching elementary math. I'm your host, Anna Marie Kretze from Kretze Creations, and after 20 years of teaching 4th and 5th grade math, I am ready to share my experiences in the classroom to help improve yours. Whether you are a brand new teacher, new to teaching math, or simply looking for a change, join me each week as we discuss all things elementary math. Let's get started. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Elementary Math Chat. And happy Thanksgiving, everyone! Since it is the week of Thanksgiving, I want to take the time to thank each and every one of you for your support and for listening to the podcast. You are the reason I started this journey, so it means more than you will ever know that you choose to join me each week. So to everyone listening, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Happy Thanksgiving, and make sure to eat lots of turkey this week. All right, teachers, if you have been with me from the beginning, you might remember back in episode 2 that I mentioned a free resource I have with over 60 math lesson plan ideas. You might have even downloaded that document. Hopefully you did. But within that document, there is an entire page on lesson hooks and warm-ups. In today's episode, I am going to highlight 9 of those ideas and share ways to implement these warm-ups into your lessons to really capture the attention of your students. In some cases, I'll even share specific examples you can use and what skills you can pair them with. The link to those 60 lesson plan ideas, along with everything else I discussed today, will be in the show notes. And just a reminder, make sure you listen until the very end because I give you a fun way to wrap up your lesson. And that's going to be in the teaching tip of the week. All right, well, let's get started with my first suggestion, and they are called Estimysteries. Estimysteries are created by Steve Wyborny, and they are free to download on his website. I think right now he has a total of 170 Estimysteries, and he has them broken down into primary grades and upper elementary, so that helps you choose the ones best for you. The overall idea is for students to estimate and try to guess the number of items in a jar. So it'll start by showing a picture of a certain item in a jar, and these items vary from pumpkins to marbles to candy, so it's different each time, and it gives them multiple opportunities to estimate. So they start off with just a really cold guess. No clues, just a good old educated guess. It will then start to give them clues as to how many are in the jar. For example, it will say the answer is a multiple of 3, or the answer is greater than 15 but less than 60. And they use those clues to adjust their answer and hopefully get the correct estimate by the end. Sometimes for fun, I would do these Estimysteries right before lunch or right before specials, and I would make them wait until they got back for the reveal. I know, I'm so mean, aren't I? But it did make it even more exciting when they got back and learned what the number was. Now, these Estimysteries are really quick, so you can do like 2 or 3 for your lesson warm-up. Well, let's move on to my second suggestion, which is also from Steve Wyborny, and they are estimation clipboards. What's cool about these is they have several different estimations within one activity, and students use what they learn about one amount to estimate a new amount. So it's a great way to practice with benchmarks. For example, there's one estimation clipboard where they try to guess the number of golf balls in a vase, and it's pretty full in this first image. So they're prompted to estimate first, and then it reveals the amount, which is 39. Then they use that number to estimate the number of golf balls in the next image, which has an even fuller vase. So they know it has to be more than 39. Once they estimate, then it reveals the number, which in this case is 47. Then the third image has fewer golf balls than the first one. So they know it has to be less than 39. So again, they use what they know about the first two, and they estimate, and then it's revealed. This one is 34. And then the final image has the vase overflowing with golf balls, so they know this has to be the highest number of all. And this one it's 53. Sometimes the actual container will change, like in one example, it's a small glass, and then in the next example, it's a larger vase. So they really have to think about what they know about one amount to estimate for the next amount. So huge shout out to Steve Wyborny for making these awesome estimation clipboards and Estimystries. They are so much fun, they're easy to use, and they are a great review of math skills. My third suggestion is a quick vocabulary activity that you can use with units that either have a lot of vocabulary, like geometry, or you can use them in any unit and just use review vocabulary terms. And they are anagrams. Anagrams are words with scrambled letters, so students have to unscramble them to spell the vocab term. You can show one word at a time, or you can show a few at a time. Put a timer on the board and challenge them to see how many words they can unscramble in 2 to 3 minutes, whatever time you have. Once the time is up, you can reveal the vocab term and review the definitions. I would recommend, if they finish early, to have them define the term or draw a picture or provide an example just to reinforce the vocab term even more. If you do one word at a time, you can even give them clues, like every 30 seconds you can give them a new clue. Back in the day, Smart Notebook actually had an anagram page that had these clues built in. So if they were stuck, they hit the button that said, I think it said hint, and they could unscramble the letters on the interactive board, which was really fun to do too. So you can either write these on your dry erase board, or you can make them into movable pieces or movable letters on your interactive board for extra engagement. Just for fun, let's try one real quick and see if you can unscramble it. The letters are C, T, F, A, I, R, N-O. Now, you're probably stuck with that, so here's your first clue. Part. Okay, here's your second clue. Thirds. I'm sure you've guessed it now, it's fraction. So that's how it works with the clues. I do have a link in the show notes to a website with math anagrams on it, and I think this would be a really fun choice board activity. They get to, I think there's 12 on a page, and they type them in and then it'll check them for them. And it's all math vocabulary. Moving on to my fourth suggestion. This one I have mentioned before back in episode 14 on task cards, and that is Quiz Quiz Trade. This is a great way to begin your lesson because it gets your students up and moving and interacting with each other, and they really enjoy it. I'm not going to go into much detail just because I went into full detail in episode 14, but with Quiz Quiz Trade, students will need a task card or a flashcard or anything that has the question on the front and then the answer on the back, and they quiz each other and then trade. Definitely make sure this is paired with skills where they can answer with mental math. And back in episode 14, I listed a whole bunch of ideas for Quiz Quiz Trade. I most often did Quiz Quiz Trade when I needed to check for homework completion. It was nice to keep them busy and have them walking around while I was able to go in and check their homework. But it was also a great way to end the lesson too. So I'm a big fan of Quiz Quiz Trade. My fifth suggestion for a warm-up activity is called Guess My Number. In episode 4, I did share a Guess My Number game in the teaching tip of the week, and I will put that episode link in the show notes in case you missed that version. But today I'm going to share a different version that's a little quicker than the game version I previously talked about. In this version, you give them several clues to try and guess your number, and all of the clues tie in math vocabulary, like odd and even, factors and multiples. You can also use words like sum or difference, product, quotient. Those are just a few ideas, but what this does is it makes this a really great activity to tie in academic vocabulary. Here's an example of one with fractions that you can do with your students. So let's see if you can guess my number. Start with the sum of 1/6 plus 5/6, add 4, subtract 2/3, add 3, subtract 1/3. And that was your last clue. If you came up with the number 7, you are correct. See how fun those are? Once you do a few of these together, you can even have your students create them as well. I had mine create these as a choice board activity, and I had certain steps that they could take and kind of guided them through, and they also had a list of vocabulary terms that they could use. So they do need a little bit of support if they are going to do these on their own. All right, moving on to my sixth suggestion, and this one is called Which One Doesn't Belong? I am sure you've heard of this one. In fact, the new math series that my former district chose for this year includes these in their lessons, which is awesome. But if yours doesn't, I have linked the website where you can find lots of these examples. This one is really simple. You are shown 4 different images, and you have to find a reason or 2 why one image doesn't belong. This is another activity where students will be using academic vocabulary in their answers, and we want them using these terms as much as possible. So, for example, they might see that only one of them is odd, or only one of them is prime, or only one of them is a multiple of 10. And I also love that there can be more than one answer for each example, so it doesn't cause them to stop thinking after one person has answered. There are lots of different examples to choose from. Some of them are numbers, some of them are shapes, and they even have ones for middle and high school with graphs and equations. Regardless of what you choose, this activity is a good one if you are short on time, but you still want something engaging to open up your lesson. Moving on to my 7th suggestion, and that is to use boom cards for a few warm-up questions. Boom card decks typically come with maybe 15 to 20 questions, so you can just take 3 to 5 cards and use those for a warm-up. These questions can be over one skill, or they can be a mixture, like a spiral review. And speaking of spiral review, that is my 8th suggestion. And I know these are pretty common. I think nearly every class I subbed for last year began their lesson with a paper pencil spiral review. And I definitely see the value in these. I do like from a teacher's perspective that it's a quiet and soft start to your lesson, but you have to admit, it's not the most exciting way to begin. So if you're required to give spiral reviews, but you want more exciting ways to begin your lesson, consider assigning these as part of their independent assignment during Math Centers. And this wouldn't be the only thing they do. They would maybe have 2 things to do. So first, they would complete their spiral review, and then they would complete their other formative assessment you have, maybe an exit ticket or a quick Google form. As far as checking over them, I suggest doing this as a group after your lesson, but before they work on the next day's question. So you would check over Monday's questions right before they complete Tuesday's questions. So that's just an option if you don't want to do it to start your lesson. My 9th and final suggestion is to activate their prior knowledge with a discussion using Think, Pair, Share. For example, if you are teaching a lesson on estimation, have them do a Think, Pair, Share on a time when they had to estimate in their real life. So allow them to think on their own, pair up with a partner, and then share as a group. When you share as a group, then you can create a word web with estimation on the inside and then their ideas on the outside. So they'll probably say things like they've estimated when cooking or measuring or even sports, or when they were estimating what time it was, or with money. Another idea is when you are teaching fractions. Have a discussion around items in their real life that can be broken into equal-sized parts. They may say things like candy bars or brownies, pizza, maybe even money or time. So again, you can create a word web and put fractions in the middle and then those words on the outside. Think, Pair, Share has been around for a long time, and it's no wonder that it's lasted because it's low prep, and it's a meaningful way to start your lesson. Well, we are near the end, but before we get to today's teaching tip of the week, let's do a quick recap of all 9 warm-up activities that you can do to start your lesson. Number 1 was Estimysteries. Number 2, Estimation Clipboard. Number 3, Math Anagrams. Number 4, Quiz Trade. Number 5, Guess My Number. Number 6, Which One Doesn't Belong. Number 7, Boom Cards. Number 8, Spiral Reviews. And number 9, Think, Pair, Share. I hope you are excited to try a few new ideas, and I'd love to hear which one is your favorite. Screenshot this episode and tag me on Instagram. It's at Kretzy_creations. Believe it or not, there was another Kretzy Creations, so I had to put an underscore in there. And in case you don't know how to spell it, it's KREJCI. So tag me on Instagram and let me know which one is your favorite. It is now time for today's teaching tip of the week. Today's episode was about how to begin your lesson, but today's teaching tip is about how to close your lesson. No matter how many things I had to jam-pack in my lesson, I always tried to carve out 1 or 2 minutes at the end for students to share what they accomplished that day. So they would share things like, I got 2 things on my choice board done, or I got 100% on my boom cards, Or I won the fraction game against so-and-so. Or maybe even I was struggling with equivalent fractions before today, but now I feel more confident. This is an opportunity to wrap up in a feel-good way and celebrate the small things. Well, friends, that is all for today's episode. Happy Thanksgiving, eat lots of turkey, rest up, and I will see you next Tuesday. Thanks for listening to today's episode of Elementary Math Chat. If you enjoy this podcast, it would mean so much if you could share it with a teacher friend to help spread the word, and subscribe or follow so you never miss an episode. For more information, be sure to check out the show notes with links to related blog posts and resources. Talk to you next week.